All right, the collapse in the real estate market caught a lot of people by surprise. For many families now facing terrible foreclosures, the dream of home ownership has turned into an absolute nightmare. And if your home is in foreclosure, what are your options and what are your rights? Let's ask Shari Olefson, who is a real estate lawyer and author of the book that I've been thumbing through this afternoon. I got it right here, Foreclosure Nation, and this is really good stuff. Thank you very much for being with us, Shari.
Sure, Greg. Thanks a lot for having me.
You've given us all kinds of tips and tools and resources in this book. I want to run through a few of them. Two of them right off the top are, A, don't panic, and B, pick up the phone and call your lender. Now explain.
Absolutely. You know, it's really rough out there. Even for those of us who are not in foreclosure, we all know someone who is. And it's important when that notice comes in the mail, don't panic. Because you know what? This is not your father's foreclosure with all the stigmas that may have been attached to it 10 years ago.
So why do you call the lender? Explain that.
Well, you know, there's no way that the lender's going to know that you plan to try to work these things out unless you call them. So that really needs to be step number one. There are a lot of psychological reasons that people don't want to do that. You just have to get over it.
Yeah.
But the other reason is you need to gather information.
Right, which is tip number 3, get the facts. Now, why do we need the facts? Explain that.
Well, first and foremost, you need to know who actually owns your loan, because you know now the way banking is structured, you may actually be talking to just a servicing company. And if your loan happens to be owned or insured by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, a lot of the new bailout plans are going to apply to you, so it's real important to know that. The other reason is you need to understand the process, because you need to have a good feel for how long you have to figure out a solution to the problem and try to keep your home.
You talk about self-assessment because you might have a chance for a do-over. What does that mean?
You know, I'm calling this bailout the Great American Financial Do-Over, and it's probably the only time in our lifetimes we'll ever have this opportunity. So it's important for step number 3 that viewers really sit back and take a hard look at their actual situation. Are the problems that caused you to be in foreclosure in the first place temporary, or are they really permanent? In other words, will you be able to afford this home even if you get a modification? Because 60% of those mods are still resulting in foreclosure.
Now look, you also recommend getting some help, but look, if you don't have any money to pay for the help, what do you do?
Look, if you can afford an attorney, that's absolutely the best option. But if not, there are a lot of not-for-profits out there that are trying to help. Viewers can go to foreclosurenationthebook.com for links to a lot of those websites. But you know what? One caveat, Greg, if you're going to do that, remember, at the end of the day, this is still your problem, not theirs. So you need to keep on top of them, because if they drop the ball, it's still your home that's at risk.
All right, and you list a bunch of options: modification of your loan, refinance the loan. We just refinanced ours, and we're saving a load of money. What's forbearance? You say that's an option. What is that?
Forbearance is sort of a mini version of a temporary modification, and it's what a lot of viewers are going to be experiencing now, because the whole entire country is really sort of on hold until we figure out exactly how these bailout plans are going to work. So what a lot of lenders are doing is they're telling you, we're not going to move forward with your foreclosure for 3 months, but we're also not going to modify you. We're just going to work out a temporary plan, and we're going to see where we end up in 3 months. That's a forbearance.
This is a book, Foreclosure Nation, on how to fix the problems, all kinds of tools and tips, and it's been a fun read for me. Thanks very much, Shari Olefson. Appreciate it, real estate lawyer.